Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario Nuri and Kirill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at labsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and grid fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. Welcome everybody to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today's guest is from London, England, Mark Currie from Chocolate Films. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks ever so much. Excited to be on here.
So before we kind of jump right into the meat of it, give us a little quick backstory on who you are and your company.
So yeah, I'm Mark. I run a company called Chocolate Films in London. We have been around since 2001. So yeah, we've been doing this digital video thing for quite a while now. We make content for a whole load of different clients. Do an awful lot of museums and galleries, and especially being based in London, that's a really, really large part of what we do. We also do a lot of charity work. We work with corporates, work in education, work in healthcare, and we've got two bases. We've got our main HQ and studio, which is in central London, and then we also have a second base up in Glasgow, which is it's a little bit smaller, but it focuses on local content from up there.
So what made you kind of open up a specific location in Glasgow rather than just simply sticking to one city and just moving back and forth? Was it like a certain client that kind of brought you there, or a certain type of work, or?
It was a mix. I mean, very practically, I'm sure you find this as well. Your clients will be in Toronto, I'm sure. And if somebody's in Montreal, they're probably going to hire somebody in Montreal. So having a second base opens you up to a second market. Also, the UK is not that big a country. So Glasgow is probably about an 8-hour drive from here. Manchester, Liverpool, kind of whole northern belt in England, that's about a 4-hour drive from here and a 4-hour drive from Glasgow. So what it basically means is we've now split the country in half. Any shoots that happen above Manchester, the Glasgow team do. Any shoots that happen below Manchester, our team do. And it just cuts down on overnights, it cuts down on travel, it cuts down on all that kind of stuff. And we've got an amazing team up in Glasgow. I mean, I was born in Glasgow and I love the city. You know, my family's from up there, so I have a real fondness for it. And the thing that really also inspired it was one of our team was in London, and he wanted to move back to Glasgow, so he literally quit. And Rachel, the other director, and I sat down with him and said, "No, look, we've got this idea. Let's see if we can get this working." And that was 7 or 8 years ago, I think. And we've got a lovely team of 4 up there now who produce fantastic work for all sorts of people.
Nice. So it's basically like it was a strategic move to be able to service all of the UK, not just specifically Glasgow or Scotland necessarily. I didn't realize. I forget that England is, or the UK is that small in terms
Very
of
small.
like in terms of country. Because like for you, a 5 hour drive lands you in, or sorry, 8 hour drive lands you in Scotland. For us, it lands us in Quebec.
Montreal.
You know, it's not. For us, it doesn't get us too far.
You know, I mean, we are a pretty small country, but yeah, I mean, 8 hours is still a pretty long way to travel. It just basically kind of balances everything up. I mean, I think one day it'll be really lovely to have that office in Manchester as well, because what that would essentially do is mean that we're then 2 hours away from the vast majority of the population. So everywhere we could do without an overnight, which I think would be great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of opening up a secondary location?
Organic. Everything we've ever done when we've grown has always been organic. So Ross moved to Glasgow, and he got a desk in an office of a graphic design company there, and that was going really, really well until we started actually building up the work there. And then we hired a second person, and then we moved to our own office, a really small office in a brilliant place called Glasgow Collective, and we've just gradually grown, and then we kind of got a third person, now we've got a fourth person, and we're in a bigger premises now. So, I mean, I think everything that we've done over the years has been slow and kind of deliberate growth. It's not ever been kind of one of those things where we've suddenly hired 10 people and set up a whole new base with a big kind of glossy building. It's bit by bit. So, and it works that way. It always works that way, because it means that, you know, the roots are stronger, I think.
So when you opened that location, did you have already like certain clients that team would be able to start servicing and working with, or was it kind of like you moved it there and then it basically started working as its own operation to try to gain new business?
A bit of both. We had 2 or 3 things to do up there, but what we kind of imagined from the outset is that while we build it, then Ross can be cutting footage from London. So essentially, if we shoot footage, then he can keep working on that while we develop the business up there. So we had 2 or 3 clients, and fairly soon after we got up there and we started kind of promoting ourselves up there, then suddenly we got a bunch more clients. And what it's also really useful for, and also suddenly became a big selling point for us as well, because if a company comes to us and says we need some case studies shot around the country, that's a really big deal. If you can kind of say, well, okay, well, look, the London team will do this, the Scottish team with perfectly replicated kit will do this, and it cuts down on the costs and it makes everything work better. So pretty soon we got more of those kind of jobs as well. And then after a while, things, you know, kind of big events kind of forced us to grow, like COP26. We did quite a lot with COP26, which happened in Glasgow, and that kind of helped us grow a little bit more as well. And again, bit by bit, it just can keep growing there as well. There's also different opportunities. So, like in London, you know, BBC's all over the country, but there's BBC Scotland up there, which we do some things for. And there's all sorts of different opportunities up there, different funding routes and different kinds of work as well.
And now having opened one office and you now know what the whole process is like there, are there any other, like maybe countries or locations that you think you did mention Manchester. And some other locations within the UK, but is there anywhere outside of UK that you're thinking about or have plans and works to kind of like expand to?
I think we're going to stick to the UK for the time being. We do have a fantastic network of producers in different European countries as well, who don't work for us full time, but we've had long relationships with. So in Lisbon we do, in Rome we do, in Berlin we do, and in New York we do. Obviously, New York's not in Europe, but you know. So basically, we've got producers in lots of different countries who we can kind of phone up and say, look, we've got a shoot happening in Lisbon. Can we organise this? Which is always really, really helpful. I don't think we're planning on any kind of permanent bases, but kind of never say never. But I think the UK, I mean, you know, helping to kind of shrink the distances within the UK is always a really productive thing. And it's also, the other thing is working in, you know, if we go up to shoot in Glasgow, it's always kind of element of being a bit of a tourist. But if you've got a Glasgow native crew, people who live there, who were born there, whose lives are there, they know the city, they know how it works, they understand the city. So you generally kind of, there's always a much better shorthand. It's a much easier way to shoot. Like the same as like, if we were to shoot in Toronto, that'd be silly. It'd be far better for us to kind of phone you guys up and say, you know your way around the city. You know how the city works. It's always better to be local, I think.
One thing I'm curious about is that normally when people open up a secondary location, it tends to be, like from what I've seen, in like a much busier market or like much more competitive market. Glasgow, from what I know, is kind of like, it's not that big, especially compared to London. So I'm just wondering like why you guys chose to expand to there versus like maybe just opening up that Manchester office a bit earlier.
Oh, Glasgow is pretty big. It's also a really, really exciting city. I mean, I'll probably get my figures wrong here. There's a couple of million people in Glasgow. It's Scotland's biggest city. You know, Edinburgh's the capital, but Glasgow is still Scotland's biggest city. And it's also a fantastically exciting city as well. There's so much new stuff going on there. There's so much creative stuff going on there. There's a real energy there as well. Manchester would be fantastic. But again, if we had Manchester, then practically we're still a long way from Scotland. Having those two kind of poles at the different ends of the country really make it work for us. And I think we have one person in Macclesfield, which is just outside Manchester, so that's our kind of tiny Manchester office, but it's not really there just yet. But I think having those three would really do the job, and then after that, then there's a couple of other locations that would be great. But we do kind of feel that kind of having local people in the big cities is just a fantastic benefit for a company.
So I guess it was almost like you saw that, like was it maybe also that the fact that there weren't a lot of London-based companies in Glasgow that presented itself as a sort of opportunity for you to kind of also target that market?
Yeah, and I know that there are a couple of London-based companies that kind of have something on their website to say that they're in Glasgow and Manchester and stuff, but in reality it's kind of maybe there for a bit of SEO, or maybe it's one person or somebody kind of working from home. Yeah, it's a massive advantage to have that whole office up there. It helps the company, it helps the business, and also it works really, really well having the two bases, because footage moves so easily nowadays. There's a real load-bearing kind of side to it as well. They get really busy up there. We can take on all their edits down here, and if they need extra people, then a couple of people can easily just get on a train and be up there in 5 hours. It's not really a big deal. And likewise, I know Matt from Glasgow is coming down to spend a week with us down here next week, because when we get busy down here and we need an extra person, it's just great to have one of the team from Glasgow, and it builds that bond much tighter. It's all about people, really, isn't it?
And being in close proximity to a lot of your clients is definitely a big benefit, right? And it makes it more valuable to work with you rather than a company that says that they're everywhere but are really just like a pure remote office. I know like one example of like one company, for example, in the US that markets itself as like such a massive like expanded business that's in every single city in the US and even some cities in Canada, but in reality they're just doing like the Google algorithm saying like, yeah, we're a Toronto-based company, when in reality we don't even know where their actual home base is, which I think is in LA. And it almost seems a little disingenuous in a way when you kind of say it like that. If you could say that you can service these places, you have remote teams that you can work with, sure, but it's to say that you're in these cities but not physically there, it's a little hard for clients to sometimes wonder. It's like, okay, who are we really working with? Are they here or are they not here?
And also clients see through that straight away as well.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. If a client from Glasgow phones us up and we clearly have no idea our way around the city, and we can't say, yeah, sure, somebody will pop out to do a site visit tomorrow, it's clearly not true. But we're really there. We've got a lovely office with 4 people, and they're all talented, and they're all really local as well. So I think it just really helps. It's just really good.
I want to kind of talk a little bit about your company's history. Like, can you tell us about you've been operating since 2001. It's almost a quarter of a century. Like, can you tell us about the different eras that your company went through?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 years were part-time. We set up as a company, but we had proper jobs. You know, I mean, not that it's not a proper job, but you know what I mean. We had jobs, and we made films in our spare time, and we were finding that it was taking a long time to make anything. And then we packed in our jobs, and I think we had enough. We knew that we could survive for about 3 months, and the aim was just to kind of keep going as long as we could, and we're still going. So the very kind of early days, it was very much kind of working from home, 2 of us working from home, trying to make it work. And then eventually, after probably about a year or so of that, then we got a very, very small office, and people started to come in and start working with us. Our first office was the size of, it was the size of a cupboard. It was in a community of art studios, and it had a dirt floor, and the walls were so paper thin. And we moved in, and we were really excited because it was like our first office, and nobody had told us that all the other studios around us were jewelers. In fact, no, I think they had told us, but it never clicked that jewelers might be noisy, because, I just imagined jewelers.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Quite small things. And whenever it got to exhibition time, literally there would be people above us, to either side of us, and below us, hammering metal. Literally hammering metal from morning to evening, and we just couldn't think. So then we moved to another studio in a different kind of set of art studios, and that was kind of cool for about a year. And then we finally kind of moved into an office very near us right now, just on the south bank of the Thames. And we've been kind of pottering around from space to space since then. The space we're in now is awesome. It's taken us we started talking to our local authority back in 2011 about being part of this new development called Nine Elms, which I don't know if you... on the south bank of the Thames, there was about 2 kilometres, which was completely undeveloped, which was crazy. It was opposite some of the most expensive properties in London, but it was just literally 2 kilometres of kind of urban wasteland, essentially. It was kind of post-industrial, kind of not an awful lot going on there, lots of kind of derelict buildings and things, and the whole thing has built up now. And we're right in the middle of that now, but it's taken us, it took us a good decade to sort out the space, to get the studio built, to move in. And we eventually moved in about 2 years ago, and I don't think we're planning to move from this particular space for London for a good long time. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. We haven't moved very far from our first dirt floored office, which is literally about half a mile away from where we are now. But yeah, the office.
Do you still hear the jewelers?
I was just about to
banging
ask the hammer sounds in the back of.
Nightmares. Yeah, no, it was kind of nightmarish, and yeah, the woman next door, she's about 5'2" and really slight, and she went in the morning and she'd turn her radio on and just stand there. There was literally like somebody banging a cymbal all day long, literally all day long, and yeah, it was just too much. But
I should just play that sound effect through Riverside every now and then.
Exactly.
While he's talking. Yeah. While he's talking, just do it slowly in the background. You've learned to work through it.
He'll
so
be
you
able to
should
work through it. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll start having flashbacks. My eyes will start flickering.
So that's like kind of like your office location. I'm more interested in because you've been operating since 2001. You saw different transitionary periods happen in the industry. Even on the equipment side, going from high barriers to entry to the DSLR revolution to social media age. I'm just curious how that affected your business as you guys were entering those periods. Did you guys have any major shifts, any pivots? What did you guys learn?
Yeah, every time we kind of have to pivot. I think we're always fairly kind of calm about when everybody says everything is going to change. We always kind of sit back a little bit and think, we'll just give it a little bit. Because there have been things like 3D, when 3D was suddenly the big thing, and everybody started buying 3D cameras, and it was really expensive, and we just kind of sat there and thought, when our first client asks us for a 3D film, that's when we'll think about it. But we knew other companies who were going out and buying 3D cameras. Or
do you mean 360 cameras or
no 3D? Yeah,
3D
no, about
Dario.
15 years ago.
15 years. Oh, 15 years ago. Okay, that's before us.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a thing. All right.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it was a thing, and companies were setting up, were kind of selling cameras with like a couple of lenses next to each other. I mean, it was a thing. You know, when 3D films suddenly got really big in the cinema, then suddenly the whole kind of idea of having kind of 3D films was like a thing. And I literally know people who went out and bought the cameras. I mean, 360, yeah, there were those kind of like big kind of 360 balls and things that people kind of got really into. Again, we kind of held back a little bit and thought, well, you know, if this catches on, then we'll go with it. Or we might kind of hire for a little bit, but we're not really going to go with that.
We fell into the 360 trap.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
did you?
did. Yeah, we did it in 2016 when it was just starting to get really hot and it was everywhere. But there was also the era where the technology would keep getting outdated every 3 months. So I think
No. The technology wasn't even there.
it wasn't there, but anything we did do would like not be practical after 3 months because essentially at the time what we invested in was this 360 rig of 4 GoPro 4s at the
yeah.
time, and it
was
had so many
6.
limitations.
It was 6.
and-
It wasn't 4. It was 6.
Oh yeah, sorry, six.
And
Six
it, and
GoPros.
Kirill, it wasn't that the technology was updating every 3 months. Like, it just was not there. Like,
Yeah.
it never got to there ever because
At the time, yeah.
I remember the software they had for it. It just didn't work. Like, because that tech was really meant just for 360 photos for real estate. And they were trying to convert it for video, and it wasn't there. It took like a couple of years before they came up with a simpler solution for it. But even that, like, you could look at, I don't know how it is now, but I remember like you could look and you could see the seams, the lines on the
Yep.
on the thing, and it was too drastic. And I mean, even the platforms where it would be viewed on weren't set up for it. Like, there was YouTube that was pushing it, but it's like, from what I remember at the time, like, they weren't even allowing like the full resolution you would need to be able to view it properly.
Yeah.
And if you're not viewing it at the highest possible resolution, then it's like, it looks bad. It looks all pixelated, right? And there was also the factor of like internet speed. If the person didn't have the right internet speed, the video just wouldn't load. So that was a disaster, and I wish, I'm still bitter about the money we spent on that. I still think
I mean-
about that from time to time.
The one benefit from it was that we essentially were able to make some good connections with some new clients where we may have not directly
One
done
connection.
360
One
video.
connection.
Yeah, but that one connection did bring us quite a bit of business for a few
Yeah.
years and good portfolio work. But the thing I've learned through that whole experience, whenever a new technology is coming through, the best way to assess if you should jump right into it is what is the potential mass distribution or audience consumption for it, right? Because if you can't determine that, then what are you investing in? Because yeah, as Dario mentioned very, very well, like the internet was a big thing. Not everyone had like gigabytes upon gigabytes of data to just use on the go. So they would have to watch it when they're at home at a certain setting with a certain headset. It's like too many steps for the regular audience member, right? And that's probably what the same situation was with 3D at the time. It's like, yeah, maybe in the movie theaters, but who wants to get that, like a spear going past them, like right here in their desk at home?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I think the way just we always figure it is that there's always a lag as well. And if you can stay on top of what's happening and watch what's happening, and then hire as and when you need it, but then the moment you realise actually that this is something people are really looking for, then buy into it then and get everybody trained up in it then. But I mean, realistically, there have been a lot of these different things over the years. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, we started off. I mean, first couple of short films we made were on 16 mil. We shot on Digibeta, Beta SP, Mini DV, DV Cam, XD Cam. I mean, we've done the whole shebang. And yeah, I mean, I do sound like a very old man when I can complain to editors here and say, oh my god, you don't realise what it's like. You don't have to hire a deck like this just to get the footage in, and kind of lower your gen locks and all this kind of stuff just to kind of get the footage into your computer, and you can edit it for, I mean, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's simplified in a lot of different ways. It's simplified in all the good ways because it's made the creativity much easier, and it's got much more complicated in the good ways because you can go so much further with everything now. So I mean, it's always really exciting to see. But yeah, we just hold off until we're sure that we really want to move into that particular thing.
What about with your employees? Because I think when we did the pre-interview, you mentioned that you have like quite a few. Like, I think you're part of like the outlier in terms of like video production companies that have, what was it, I'm seeing here 20, 21 people, right? As part of your team?
Actually, I think it's up to 22. We had somebody start yesterday. In fact, no, Monday. Yeah, we had somebody start on Monday as well. Yeah, I think we're up to about 22 now. Yeah, that's all about the model of the company as well. We're set up slightly differently to a lot of production companies. So we, from the very outset, when Rachel's the other director, when we came up with the idea for the company, we wanted it to be a little bit different from the very outset. And the idea was we wanted to make really great looking content, but we also wanted the company to be integrated with the community and to do projects that have social value. So from the very first year, we ran one video making workshop for a group of young people in Wandsworth Borough, where we are now. And we also made one film, and that was our entire income for the year. And as we've grown, we've kept the two sides of the company growing all at the same time, so that when people come to work with us, they know that we're a social enterprise. They know that our profits go to support this big outreach project that we have now, which I think on an average year, we work with about 3,000 children and young people in everything from animation workshops to documentary workshops to short film workshops to all sorts of different things. And the same people who shoot our films are, in general, the same people who run those workshops. So basically what we do is we have quite a large and versatile crew, and they're all fantastic people. And one day they will be filming for, I don't know, Sony World Photography Awards, for example. And then the next day they may be running a workshop for a primary school, and then the next day they might be filming, a corporate event, and then the following day they might be working with a special educational needs group. So basically, it's the way the company works. It's the way it works best, and it's never really occurred to us to kind of work on a freelancer basis, because realistically, we need these people with this set of skills, and obviously, if we were to do everything on a purely kind of commercial point of view, then we'd end up having to pay people far less for the workshops, because we have to charge an absolute fraction of what we charge for shoots for the workshops, and we'd be able to pay people far more for the productions. But having a full-time team means we pay people sustainably and give them everybody has sustainable jobs, but it just means that they balance their work. So one week they might be doing a really high production value thing, and then the following week they might be working on a kids animation workshop in a primary school. It's a bit different to most production companies, I'll give you that, but that's also one of the reasons why we do kind of retain this large crew. But we like it. It's nice to have people around. And to give people opportunities to grow kind of in a kind of sustainable fashion, I think.
It's a very different approach what you're doing compared to a lot of other companies. Like it's probably you're probably the first company that I've heard that does such a heavily involved like kind of community aspect where you go and teach all these workshops. And the one benefit also for you with that is that you're also doing a lot of outreach and community and brand awareness for chocolate films, which is huge, and you're getting huge social value as a result of it. So it's not like these employees that you have are also just doing like, just some stuff on the arm at the same time. You're actually doing good kind of like public relations, and you're building up the brand in the community. So more and more people will know about you. Your name will be passed around more in such a positive light too, because of all these different social initiatives that you have. So that's one big advantage of what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's just what we do. I mean, I think it does kind of have a business advantage, but it's I don't think we've ever really kind of considered it like that. It's not really the kind of reason we did it in the first instance, or we continue doing it. Every now and again, we suddenly kind of think, well, actually, no, this is the reason we got that job. It's actually because of this. But also, I mean, the funny thing is that sometimes it goes very much in and out of fashion as to whether companies with social value are good to work with. We've had times when we've kind of we've kept going with the social work, not social work, but with the workshops.
Yeah.
But we haven't really promoted it because sometimes certain environments, people aren't that particularly interested. Funnily enough, right now, people are very, very interested, which is fantastic because, we've got the impact reports from the last 20 odd years to kind of show how consistently and how committed we are to doing this kind of project. But it's exciting. And it keeps life really varied, and means we meet all sorts of people, and it's fun. It's good.
Yeah, it must definitely make you feel good because you're doing something positive for other people, right? So there's the positive feedback loop from that, right?
Yeah, it's just good. It's just what we do, and it's just what we enjoy doing as well.
And speaking of projects, like it's not just the only initiative that you guys do. Like you have so many different types of projects that you're doing aside from your main business and client work. One really fantastic project you do is something called 1,000 Londoners. And can you just give a little quick overview of what that is for our audience?
So 1,000 Londoners is a project we started in 2014. And we actually launched it in 2014. We came up with the idea a couple of years before that, in the aftermath of the riots of 2011. And we basically thought, well, London is this amazing city, but often it's misrepresented. And in films, you can kind of get the Hugh Grant London, or you might kind of get the Guy Ritchie London, but is any of that really kind of the real city? And we kind of came up with, we started talking about, is there a way that we can kind of almost do a portrait of a city in a film? And then we realized that wasn't going to really cut it. And then what we thought would actually be really interesting would be to make a portrait, but almost like a mosaic like portrait, where all these different pieces come together to make one big portrait of the city. And we ended up researching a little bit about how many people you need to talk to kind of get a random sample for a city of this size. And it turns out that if you want to kind of take the temperature politically or get an opinion about any issue in a city, then you need to talk to about 1,000 people. So we thought, well, why don't we go out there and make 1,000 short films about 1,000 different Londoners? Which of course raised its own questions. It's like, well, what is a Londoner? Is a Londoner somebody who was born here? And we thought, well, actually, no, that's not really the kind of story we want to tell. We just want to tell the story of the people who live and work here, the people who kind of feel that they belong to the city. So we set it up from the beginning that people self-identify as Londoners. And we started making them, we did a big launch at BAFTA back in 2014, and then we started making them about once a week. And after a while, then we started thinking, well, actually, there's really something in this. We're getting loads of kind of great positive feedback, and we started putting together seasons of them. So, and then we started putting those in tiny independent cinemas, so like 30, 40 seat cinemas at the beginning, and then that kind of grew. So after a while, then we'd do like a season probably every 3 or 4 months, and then we'd do cinema screenings and the cinema screenings kind of got bigger and bigger. So we started doing maybe 4 or 5 big cinema screenings, and then often the cinema screenings would kind of get quite busy, and we'd have these amazing Q&As afterwards, because of course if you do a season about let's just food in London, for example, and you've got somebody who is running a Aleppo kitchen, who's therefore is a refugee from Syria who is running a Syrian food kitchen, and then you've also got somebody who's doing super exclusive kind of events for celebrities and stuff, but making food for them. You suddenly get these 2 people together at a screening. You've got a fantastic conversation there from 2 people who, under normal circumstances, probably wouldn't kind of get to hang out with each other, and this kind of kept growing. And the biggest one we did was we did a season called Goodbye Europe, which was at around the time that the UK left the European Union. And we made one film about one person from every single country in the European Union. And we based some of them, Latvia. I remember Latvia was very hard to find. Some of them were kind of tricky to find. And it was this wonderful screen. It lasted about, it was about an hour and a half long, but it was this kind of like voyage through all these different languages, all these different people in the city. And the Q&As after that were absolutely kind of awesome. And then funnily enough, about 3 weeks before before lockdown hit, kind of COVID-19 back in 2020, we had our biggest of all, which was we did a kind of retrospective screening of the project, where we had 3 different screenings in one evening at Tate Modern, which, I don't know, it's like the big kind of modern art gallery in London. And then about 3 weeks after that, everything shut down and we couldn't put a camera in front of anybody. So we've then we had to do a lot to kind of we built a studio and did all that kind of stuff. But now we've started collecting the footage again, and we're beginning to start making the Londoners again. And we've rebuilt the website, and the whole thing is coming out. So we're at 386 at the moment. And yeah, 387, 88, and 89 have been shot already. We're about to shoot 390. So it's all happening again. It's really exciting, and the world has kind of changed. We basically had to take a 5-year break in it, and the world's changed an awful lot in those 5 years in so many different ways. So it's kind of exciting to be coming back to it, and we're even doing a couple of films where we're catching up with a couple of the former Londoners to kind of see where they are now as well. So it's a big old project, but that's also, it's the same way. The heart of the company is about being part of the community as well as doing commercial work, and that's always been part of it as well, because we've done workshops with all sorts of different people to encourage them to make films for 1,000 Londoners. We've done workshops in homeless shelters. We've done workshops with groups of asylum seekers. We've done workshops with all sorts of different groups to kind of build this big kind of epic picture of a city, but as well as filming with multi-squillionaires in the city, and all sorts of people. But it's a great project. It's an exciting project, and it always pushes us off in new directions and allows us to do different things. So it's kind of cool. It's fun.
What do your workshops consist of? Like, do you just teach them how to like film, or is it more than that?
Everything. We do stop motion workshops for little ones. Often it's stop motion workshops because it's so accessible, it's so easy to get into, and everybody has a brilliant time, and then they watch their characters come to life on screen at the end. We do longer documentary workshops, which can be incisive in all sorts of different ways. We also do things like make a film in a day workshops. So where often like a group will come in either to our studio or we'll go to them, and working in about groups of 8 in a really kind of structured and quite kind of full-on day. They'll play games to come up with a story. They'll storyboard their story. Then they'll go out and shoot it, and then they'll cut it, and then at the end of the day we have a screening where they can see their films up on the big screen at the end of the day. And they usually end up making probably about 60-second films. But sometimes we also do workshops that are very specifically for a particular group. So it can be we've done workshops that have been prescribed by the National Health Service in the past for people with anxiety. We've done all sorts of things. We have groups of people on the autism spectrum who we work with. We've got homeschool groups. We've got all sorts of different groups we work with. And it's always nice to meet new people, isn't it? It's always nice to
How often do you guys do them?
All the time. So, I mean, there are times of the year where it's busier, but there are times of the year where, where it's a little bit quieter. But I mean, I'd say at the moment we've probably got, 3 or 4 a week.
3 or 4 a week?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have the time with the workshops, the 1,000 Londoners, and like all the client work that you have? I know you have a team of 22 people, but with the amount of work that goes into one even like short documentary film that you probably do for 1,000 Londoners, or like 3 to 4 workshops a week, like how do you manage all that time? Like what's your process for that?
I mean, to be honest, we've got a really good team. I mean, our producers, they run the workshops in the same way as they run the films. They're just super organized. If there's any ways that we can tighten up processes, either on the production side or on the workshop sides, we will. So, some of the workshops are very structured, very kind of timetabled, because we've been doing this for a very long time. So that we kind of we have a workshop that we can deliver for a day rather than reinventing it every single time. I think we just have to stay super organized, and and fortunately we've got a really great team. So in the same way as the filmmakers will teach each other how the workshops run, and they'll support each other. Lots of processes just to kind of take friction out of the system. I mean, one of the big things we did probably about 4 or 5 years ago was we made sure that everybody had, all our kind of shooter editors had their own kit, their own cloned kit, so that everybody's, I think of it like packing your own parachute. Do you know what I mean? So, so basically if you've got your kit and you know that a microphone's not working, then you'll come to me, or you'll kind of say, look, can I just get this extra bit to fix the microphone? You won't leave it in the bag. You know that if you've packed your bag this evening and you're going to be the one using it tomorrow morning, then you'll know how it is. So we don't really do very many shared kits, which is a massive kind of advantage. So things like that, just taking any bit of friction out of the system, I think it's kind of the rule of thumb. If you need to kind of duplicate bits of kit, or if you need to kind of replicate things, then kind of so be it. Just if there's anything that's going to cause a glitch, then just try and get rid of it as quickly as you can.
Do people come to you for these workshops, or are you outreaching to get people to come to them?
People will come to us.
Okay, so you guys will just publish it and they'll just join the event and then show up?
And it happens in all sorts of different ways. So schools will get us in, youth clubs will get us in. We'll also advertise workshops in the studio, so that people can just come join in and come to us. Sometimes, somebody else will be kind of like running a festival, and they'll kind of ask us to come in so the people at the festival can come and join in. Basically every way and any way. As you find with production companies, every organisation is different. Every school, every youth club, every charity is different. So we have to kind of align with the way they do things, really.
Do you do any ongoing workshops, like with several particular schools? Do you have something where you do a workshop with them every month or every week, or how do you have any of those types of relationships?
Yeah, we've got schools. It's often we go back to every year. We don't really kind of do kind of going back every week or every month, because often for schools it's kind of like it's almost like a bit of a treat day, or it's something that's very specifically linked to curriculum. So some people doing film studies or media studies, sometimes it's kind of very linked to their curriculum. So they'll get us in that way. But we do make our own films as well. We don't just do workshops in 1,000 Londoners. Don't worry, that we do make an awful lot of films as well. So but the whole thing is holistic. It all has to link in together, and everything has to kind of like link tightly together. And it's the way it kind of all comes together and works, really.
I want to explore a bit, again, getting to 22 plus employees. Because again, it's almost like you guys, how like in the Fermi paradox, there's those extinction barriers that you got to go through. Like I find that a lot of companies will be kind of like Currie and I, where it's like, I think the majority of people we've had on this podcast are like single owners or partner owners. And then the next level after that is like getting to around 5 to 6 employees. Then anything 10 plus is like an outlier. I'm just curious, how did you guys grow to become one of these companies? Like, was it a gradual process? Like, what kind of like pushed you guys to this current level?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are stages, and each time you hit a stage, then you have to kind of reinvent the company, and sometimes that's not so comfortable, and kind of you have to rethink things quite a lot. Basically, when we started off, there was 2 of us, and then and we're married as well. So just in case you didn't know, so we're married as well, and we were kind of quite happy being just the 2 of us for a little while. And then when Rachel was pregnant with our daughter, quite quickly she was a little unwell, so she couldn't come to work anymore. She couldn't go on shoots. So suddenly I was kind of on my own. And after a couple of months of this, I was literally like, look, we literally just need to hire somebody. And then by the time Rachel came back, there was 4 of us. So basically, when she came back, when she came back after maternity, then suddenly it was a company of 5 people. And so that's how we got over the first barrier. So if you want to grow, then Dario, become pregnant somehow magically.
I think I'll have Carol become pregnant.
I think that did give us the push, because and you're right, it's difficult because of course the first person you hire, you're increasing, if there's 2 of you, you're increasing your entire workforce by 50%. Now, we're 22 people. If I suddenly said tomorrow I'm going to make it 33 people, that would be mad. So that first one is really, really difficult. That's the most difficult one to do. So basically what we just kind of figured was, so long as we could cover her costs, Anna was the first member of the team. So long as we can cover her costs, and so long as it means that I can sleep a little bit more, then suddenly that's going to be okay. So we didn't we didn't hire her with some big idea of her generating a large amount of income. It was just literally like, let's just keep the company going. Let's keep it good. I think the other thing you realize as soon as you hire your first person is that founders work in slightly different ways to a first member of staff. Because, I remember projects that me and Rachel did when it was just the 2 of us, where, we work 16-hour days, 18-hour days. And the moment you hire somebody, you very quickly realise actually that's no good. That you can't ask people to do that. So suddenly it wasn't just one person we needed. It was 2 or 3 people we needed. So that was the kind of first level. I think there was another surge where we kind of grew from 5 to 10. I think that was probably, I'm trying to remember when that was. And 10 was quite a comfortable number. Getting over 10 was the one that required us to reinvent lots of systems, about resourcing with kit, about managing time, about finding ways to stop us having to kind of talk to people that's the wrong way of saying it, not to talk to people all the time, but allowing people to be independent to kind of find out the information that they need about things coming up, because you can't have that same kind of one-to-one relationship with everybody all the time when you kind of get over about 12 people, in my experience. So what we tried to do, and it took us a couple of years to work out the right systems, but to find systems where you know what kit you want to use, then just look on look on this platform and you'll find out what kit you're taking out today. If there's maintenance that needs to be done, drop a note in there and then it will be sorted. So all these kind of things where you don't need to have a conversation with somebody, you don't need to kind of say, oh, can I take the gimbal out today, or whatever it is. You just look on and say, oh yeah, it's available, I'll just check to see if I can get it. And so it, just automating as much of those things as possible enabled us to grow again there. I don't know how you get above 22. I'm not sure. I desperately want to right now.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
No, but I mean, but systems that are great when there's 2 people are not so great when there's 5. Systems that are great when there's 5 are not so great when there's 10. Systems that are great when they're 10, when there's 20, they just break. They just break under the weight. So we just have to keep reinventing quite a lot.
And communication is a good one.
Sorry, Carol. So the systems would break at certain numbers, but not at others.
Yeah. So I mean,
is it because you needed like people to manage the people? Is that because you're finding that as a need?
There was a bit of that, but it's also, I don't know if I can kind of express it correctly. There's probably people who've written books on all of this stuff. It's just the kind of the proximity that you can have to people. So, I mean, again, one of the things that was difficult for ages was allocating kit. We had like this, we had like a Sony kit, we had a Canon kit. We loved having all the different bits of kit. The moment you got like 4 or 5 people sharing that many kits, it was an absolute disaster, because you're doing a shoot, you're shooting a Sony one day, the next week you've got a Canon, you haven't got a Sony because somebody else has taken the Sony. All that kind of stuff gets really, really confusing. So then suddenly realizing that, at that point, you've got to actually rationalize what you do. You've got to get a little bit more organized, almost like with a kind of fleet of kits. So things like that. getting good IT systems set up, because you don't want somebody leaning over all the time, kind of asking about this and asking about that. It's far easier for them just to look on it. So it's all that kind of stuff of trying to make sure that the organisation systems are there so that everybody can actually be creative on top of it, rather than spending their entire time worrying about logistics and and kind of fiddly, annoying things, because that's not why any of us do it. None of us do it to kind of just to fill in spreadsheets or whatever, do we?
But why did you say it works at like, I might have misheard, but did you say it works at like 5 people but it doesn't at 10? Is that what you're saying? Or
the systems you have at 5 don't work when you get to 10.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Okay.
Sorry, I was probably unclear, but yeah, I mean, if there's 5 people, that's almost like a little family. You're talking to each other all the time. Once it gets to 10, you just can't do that, because it's just too much noise and nobody will ever get anything done.
Right. Yeah, okay. I misunderstood.
You mentioned like once you get to that certain number of like 10 or 15 people, a lot of the communication has to change, like in the business, like you said, because if you were to take a 30-minute call with each person in a 10-person team, that's 5-6 hours of your day immediately just gone if you were trying to do it all in one day, right? So I like how you pointed out that a lot of logistical conversations that you might have when it's just a team of under 5, finding systems to kind of get rid of those after 10 people is so key. And like it got me thinking about like how much time could be spent just in, like, as you said, just asking like, hey, is it possible to use this on this day, right? Like the amount of time that would take for you to also answer that question, you have to go double check something and then get back to them. Like that's all time that can be used, as you said, to focus on creative stuff. And I think that's a very key thing, to be able to free up your time to do so many of these different initiatives. And did you find that when you were starting to, as you were growing and you were developing these new communication systems or logistical approaches, did you find that it got easier and easier as it kind of went as well, because you got so accustomed to finding new ways to solve these issues?
Yes, but I'm also not saying that they all worked. We've had systems that we've tried to bring in that have been absolute disasters in the past as well. So, but I think that...
What was one that didn't work? I'm curious.
The one that was awful, we basically realised that we needed some way of managing what kit's going to be where at any time, and we got a system in which was the best one we could find at the time, I think maybe it was that there wasn't the right one available at the time, but we ended up getting a kind of warehousing system, which was a system which was very non-intuitive, and every kit was listed by all the parts. So basically it wasn't just like, you couldn't just kind of say, so-and-so bag. It was like, it would list every single thing within the bag, and then you had to check every single thing in and check single thing out. And it was just really slow, and it was really clunky and non-intuitive. And what I tend to find is that if there's a system that people just don't end up using, then it's probably the wrong system. It doesn't mean that you don't need the system, it just means that it's the wrong one. And that one we kind of persisted with for probably about a year or so. And no matter how many times we reminded people, look, can you check things in when you get back? Can you check things out when you go? People just wouldn't do it, because if you get back from a shoot, the last thing you want to do is sit on some kind of funny system clicking boxes for about 10 minutes. It's no fun. So we'd end up getting rid of that and doing a whole load more research. And now we've got a really lovely kind of responsive system that works for us and helps us manage where people are and where kit is, and kind of book things out in advance and kind of know how it's all working. And that's really responsive, and people use it all the time and they refer to it all the time. So that basically means that it's working. So the first one identified that the need was there. It just wasn't the right solution. So, but I think it's that thing of always trying to find those new things all the time and keep everything moving forward all the time.
Do you know the name of the system you're using currently?
Yeah, it's Resource Guru. I'm a fan. But I think if there's 2 people, you probably don't need it just yet. But I imagine you can talk to each other.
He's checking for later.
But no,
I get it on Google Keep Note. I'll check it 5 years down the line.
But no, I mean, we find it works really, really well for us. And also sometimes you get a system and you don't use all of it, so it's kind of a way of pulling back from things like that. But yeah, that's one system that it took us a bit of trial and error, but now we know that it really works for us. However, I don't know if it will still work for us if we do grow by another 50%. We might need to find something a little bit more robust.
Yeah, because buying new kits for every single team member that you bring in, it does
expensive.
get a little pricey over time.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. However, there is, it certainly does get pricey. Of course it does. There's no way around it.
It's an investment, though, right?
It
Investing
is an
in the
investment.
team.
And also when you replace bits, you don't have to replace the entire kit. So long as the lenses still fit, then you can keep the lenses and replace the back end, and then, so it's a commitment. But what that does do is it just means that everybody can act independently, and it just gives everybody makes everybody much calmer,
Especially for last minute stuff. Like, we've had situations where someone has gotten sick the day before a shoot or something like that, where you're then scrambling to find someone who can help replace them. And this was obviously like a big thing also during like COVID, right, where we started seeing a lot of that especially. And so having people that are ready to go on hand is like, hey, so-and-so can't make it tomorrow. If you're not working on any other client projects, we need you to go there to cover for them. And it's a lot faster and easier than them like going in trying to get the kit from that person or
well, not even that, even the consistency of the equipment, right? Because if they're all shooting on Canons, for example, at least the footage is all going to look the same and it's not going to look different and whatnot.
Also the producers, when they're talking to a client, the client says, will they have this with them? Everybody knows exactly what's in all the bags. So, the producers don't have to kind of check with somebody, well, you're going to have one of those. Everybody knows exactly what's in everything, so that communication just doesn't need to happen. I mean, again, it's keeping all the communication to the important stuff, which is the work, really, isn't it? It's not the logistics.
Getting to a company of your size, I imagine, companies, once they get past, I would say, like a couple people, like bureaucracy is probably like something you have to keep an eye on, especially at your level. How do you keep your company, like, from getting too bogged down with like processes or just, things of that nature?
We do have a bunch of processes. We do.
I don't mean like process, but just like in terms of like, bureaucracy, like just too many like hoops and hurdles to hop over.
You mean like people relationships, Dario?
No, like, because if you talk to anyone that's working at a company, they always talk about how like it's slow and this and that. So like, coming from, being an owner where it was just you and your wife, and if you want to get something done, you just go do it. Yeah. How do you make sure that, especially at your stage now, you don't have too many things that might slow your company down?
I think practically what we do is whenever we see that there is something that's slowing us down, we try and fix it. Or if there's something that's making people's lives not happy, then we just try and fix that one thing. And then generally, if it works and it sticks, then that becomes part of one of the processes. There's no, things like, we've got things like, the financial side of things. We've worked quite hard with our accountants, especially even over the last year, just to try and speed up all those processes so that nobody has to sit down for days and days counting receipts or whatever. So there's so many kind of automated systems nowadays that the way I can see it is that usually if you can imagine what would be helpful and then you look hard enough, then there's something that will do the thing that you need it to. So I think realistically what we end up doing quite a lot is try to find the pressure points, and then we try to do something to relieve the pressure, which means we're not trying to change everything all the time, but as things kind of move forward, we suddenly notice, oh yeah, hang on, maybe it's vehicles, that's the problem at the moment. When we had a thing where, this is a few years ago when all the cars were all petrol, where it was actually really annoying for the team, because if somebody was going out and driving a lot, then they'd often have to kind of be the one paying for the petrol, and then claiming it back, and these end up being quite large amounts of money. So we ended up finding a fuel card system, so that basically all the cars had a card on it, and they could just go in and they could tap that, and any petrol station they go into, they would tap that and it would charge it to an account, and we'd pay the account at the end of the month. So nobody had to claim expenses for that, which meant that from their side it was far less annoying, and from our side it was easier to kind of collate all the receipts at the end of the month. But that's a very, very boring kind of example. But all these little things, if you notice a little thing, then you fix it, and then you move on, and then there'll be another thing. There's always going to be something else. I mean, it's always going to be something else. But
I guess I should have reworded it, because I was more interested in how do you not fall into that trap? Because that's kind of reactionary in a way. Have you been doing any? Have you been do you guys every 6 months just sit down and maybe ask the team about feedback on what you guys can improve, or because I'm assuming at the beginning you did maybe fall into those traps where things were holding you guys back, and then until it became a problem, you guys did something about it, right? So do you guys have a process in place now to make sure you guys can avoid these issues?
Yeah, we do. Rachel has a monthly meeting with the Glasgow team. We have post-production meetings, we have production meetings, we have meetings with the crew, and we when we get everybody together, it's usually just to kind of go out for drinks or dinner or something. But everybody kind of knows their department much better, so it's much easier to sit down with the people who are working on post-production to talk about post-production and any processes we can improve there than sitting around with everybody, because they're the ones who are doing it all the time, and then we can feedback from there. But also, people do contact us and talk to us about things quite well. We've got some really good and forthright members of the team who will say, look, we need to have a little think about this now, and then we can work it out from there. I'm trying to think of good examples. I'm failing miserably.
But it seems like you guys fostered an environment that's very open, so that your employees do feel comfortable enough to come to you and say, hey, let's fix this, so that at least it helps everyone, right?
Yeah, we try to. We do our very best to. We want it to be a nice environment. We want people to have a good time here. And we want people to stay as well. We want people to kind of and because basically as people stay, they can get to know all the processes really well, and then people can suggest things that are improvements.
I'm actually curious about that. How long has your team on average, how long does a team member typically stay within the business? Is it 5 years? Do you have some that have been there since the very beginning? What is that like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We've had nobody who's been here since the beginning, obviously, apart from Rachel and myself. Anna, our first employee, moved back to New Zealand. She was with us for about 5-6 years. We've had, I think, 2 people who've hit the decade. So Ali, who left us a couple of years ago, she was here for a good decade, and Ross has been here for about 10 years. We've got a couple of people who about 8 years, some who are about 5-6 years. Quite a few who are 3 to 4 years now. So people tend to stay for quite a while, and that's a really good thing. Sometimes people don't stay for very long. We had somebody turn up for a day once and then go on their merry way again.
Oh wow! Really?
It just wasn't for them, and we thought it was really nice. We thought we had a lovely time, but he kind of phoned up the next morning and said, "No, it's not for me," and then just didn't come back. So it's not for everybody, but
yeah. No, but that makes sense. It sounds from what you've described, it sounds like people would want to stay, and that's what I was curious about, because obviously in our careers, in this industry, some people like sometimes to try different things or move around in their career and try different types of projects, and so some would stay for a few years or something like that. But it sounds like you've really fostered a community environment in your business where it encourages people to stay longer, and that's probably why you're able to have this kind of translate into all the other initiatives you do as well, right?
Yeah, we do our very best to. We've had a couple of people go away for about a year and then come back, which is also really nice as well. And of course, generally, if people ask if they can come back, then 9 times out of 10 we go, yeah, willingly, because because we'd like them to come back. So But yeah, I mean, we try to, and obviously, you know, nobody's perfect, and there's, you know, we're all human, but we try to build an environment that everybody's enjoying being at.
What do you guys do to keep your employees? Well, I guess you guys do the workshops and everything. You meet like once a month. Do you guys do anything outside of that to like help your employees grow and develop?
Oh gosh, I mean, the funny thing was, one of the early things about 1,000 Londoners that we really liked was the fact that it was a free project. So, you know, I know that some companies kind of, you know, do that passion project thing. So like if they kind of think of a short film or whatever, they go off and shoot that. But that's kind of what 1,000 Londoners is. But generally, all 1,000 Londoners films have been shot in teams of one or two. Most of them, I mean, very, very small crews. But the best ones are always the ones where someone said, "Look, I've got an idea. I want to try it out," and then they've gone and tried it out. And because generally that's their way. It's a brilliant way to try new things. I mean, we definitely do training when people arrive, and we try to encourage people to grow. And also, everything's always changing all the time, so people are changing and trying new projects all the time. We don't have a formal training process, which is something that we should probably look into. But people do definitely grow, and 1,000 Londoners has always been one of those things where it's allowed people to grow and develop. We've even set up an animation strand of it. We've got 2 animations coming out for it, which is a great way to help the animators just kind of develop and grow as well, because they can try new things. When the client is us, then we're much more open for people to try new things and to be brave. Sometimes if a client comes to us with a very specific brief, then we're hitting the brief. You know, that's the goal of the job, to make sure that the client's absolutely delighted. But that means that there may be some kind of ideas that aren't being tried out. And the funny thing about 1,000 Londoners is also it means that, you know, sometimes people come to us, they'll say, "Look, I really love that film. Can I have something a bit like that?" Which is always fun as well.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for everyone in terms of like what the potentials could be. You know, like your team's creativity can really flourish and grow from that. It's team building. It's like figuring out your own processes sometimes on a project that isn't a client is great, because then you can work out kinks without having a project suffer as well, especially when people are fairly new to the team, and you can introduce them to how your whole workflow is. And like you said, once you get a creative piece, you never know who might see it and think, you know, this could be something that we would want to pay for as well, right? But I think the informal approach in our industry is a really good. Like, obviously there are some small things that you can give formally in terms of like technical things that you can teach, but I think one of the biggest benefits is sometimes being just thrown in the deep end and being like, "Hey, go shoot this." Like I found early on, anytime I was able to kind of grow or elevate my skills was because I was thrown sometimes in the deep end a little bit to force me to solve problems in ways that I hadn't thought of before. So I think, yeah, maybe if you want to explore some formal ways, but I think the approach you're doing now is definitely working great.
I mean, I kind of agree. I mean, sometimes there's technical things that often need to be done. But I mean, I often think back, I went to university where there wasn't a film course, and there wasn't a drama course or anything like that. But what there was a brilliant, amazing film society where people learnt from each other. And I look back now and I kind of think, you know, I never went to film school. However, there was the film and the drama society. I mean, this is going back years now. They were next door to each other. But I look back and the people who were in those environments, none of us did film degrees because there wasn't one. But Eddie Hamilton, who's just edited all the Mission Impossible films, he was there. Harry Bradbeer, who directed Fleabag and Enola Holmes and Enola Holmes 2, he was there, and I did a bunch of plays with him. Christopher Nolan, obviously, he was there. And, you know, you kind of think these people, none of them, Nolan did an English degree, and all the people in this first film were all the people from university when I was there. You know, it was all basically a bunch of Bolex cameras that people had access to. and they would go out and they would shoot films on these Bolex cameras, and there was like, you had to kind of pitch, and there was like 2 films a year that could be made on where you get free film stock and stuff like that. But it was a weird thing, you know, we had people doing biochemistry and going off and shooting films. And I look back, I mean, you know, over here, like, you know, EastEnders is the biggest TV soap opera. Executive producer of EastEnders, he was in the Drama Society with me. And there's a whole load of people from that time who none of whom were taught anything about film or TV, but did amazing things. And I do kind of think that learning from each other thing and having a kind of positive environment is a terrific way of learning.
So you learned with Chris Nolan, same class? Is that what you're saying?
No. I did a French degree. He did an English degree. Although saying that, I had an old VHS camera back in the day, and my dad found it and brought it round the other day. And my brother-in-law Dave, right, who does need to be name-checked and everything, he was at university with me, and he shot some of Following, which was Nolan's first film. And he saw this old VHS camera, and he said, "You used that, a bloke called Bill used that, I used that, and Nolan used that, and I don't think anybody else has ever used that camera." So I have this very old VHS camera that I can happily say one of Nolan's early films was shot in it, but beyond that...
Put it on eBay.
Yeah.
eBay auction.
Yeah, but you'd need like DNA testing or something, wouldn't you? I mean, but,
put it on
Bits
your
of the
mantle.
Following still on the tape.
the lost scenes, it's all sitting there, isn't it? But I do kind of I do like that, and I think it's also, it forces you to kind of find that if you need to know something, it's great to go out there and find it out for yourself, isn't it?
We're getting near the end, but I didn't get a chance to touch on this earlier. I wanted to talk a little bit about like sales with you, because again, you're one of the outlier companies out there. With regards to your sales process and everything, or even because I'm guessing you did all the sales for your company, right? Especially when you guys started ballooning, essentially.
Yeah. So
And
yes.
Oh, sorry. I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you go about it to be able to grow so much? Like, we've spoken about your office, the team, and everything, but now let's talk about like the fuel.
Money.
Yeah.
How the stuff that makes it happen?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing to note is that neither of us have ever worked for another production company. So everything that we do is we've worked out, but it's not like we worked for somebody else and nicked their processes. It took us... Right, so basically, on the sales side of things, Rachel is very, very good at going out and talking to people and building those relationships. So she often does that kind of... She does networking really, really well. And our very first job was because she went and found somebody who would hire us. From that, a lot of our sales came from early jobs leading to other early jobs, which was really exciting. And we've worked with every big museum and gallery in London we have worked with at some point over the years, and a lot of those do come down to some of those very early contacts we made, because you meet an organisation or you get a bit of a reputation in a particular area. So much of it relied on contacts and being referred from one person to another. When it comes down to things like pricing, I think one of the things about working in the kind of art and museum world is that you're often working to a kind of tendering process, a public procurement process, which basically means that they will literally say how much the job should cost. And then you have to kind of work back from there to make sure that you can deliver everything in a very sensible way. So often it's actually really useful, and especially in those early years where you kind of know, well, hang on, this project needs the maximum they will pay for this project is £10,000. So how on earth do we distribute the funds from there to make sure that everything is covered and paid for? So things like that were very, very useful. We didn't start marketing ourselves until much later. So I think we were probably about, I don't know, 6 or 7 people when we started thinking about marketing ourselves, and then probably when we got over about 10 people, that we started doing things like SEO and advertising and stuff like that. I mean, the simple process is that our producers will build relationships with the clients, and then they'll be the ones dealing with that client. So when there's returning projects coming back to them, they deal with those directly, and then Rachel and I are often the ones who deal with potential new clients, and still I think the heart of it is that, you know, we try to value every client equally. So sometimes we know that there's a small charity that needs a film, we will value them just as much as we'll value a big commercial client. So basically we want to give everybody the best possible value that we can do. And so, oh gosh, I don't know if I've answered your question. Any specific things about sales? I mean, I think we always try to talk to people, to get them on a call as soon as possible. I think those briefs that come through where it's just like, can you send us a quote for this brief? You know, generally what they're just looking for is the lowest cost. And sometimes it's virtually impossible to work out exactly what they want, because it's better to talk through a brief with somebody to find out which bits of the brief are the important bits and which ones are actually the bits they just kind of wrote in there thinking, well, that might be a nice little extra or something. And also then once you get them onto a call, you can see if there's any added value that you can offer. That is, I mean, I think the more personal, the more human the approach, the better, really.
I wanted to do a deeper dive, but unfortunately I got another meeting in 5 minutes that I completely forgot about, so we got to end this off pretty quick. Well, Currie will ask him about the name question, but we got to keep it to like a minute answer.
Yeah. So just how did you come up with the name Chocolate Films? That's one thing we ask all of our guests.
Rachel thinks I came up with the idea. I think she came up with the idea. Neither of us knows. It's too long ago in the past.
He's a good husband. It's always, he's giving credit to the wife. It's good.
Yeah.
It's actually it was at a time when there were lots of kind of like edgy names of companies, and we actually went for something that I think everybody likes and makes people feel warm and makes people feel kind of sweet. Nice. So, yeah, I mean...
How sweet.
So it's kind of worked for us, and I think it's memorable, and yeah, I think people just like it, really.
Honestly, like every time I read it, it makes me a little hungry. So there's probably something there.
It's good. It's good. Have you worked with any chocolate companies as a result, or not yet?
It took us 12 years, but then one day we were hired to make a film about making a Georgian chocolate cake, which was really
that's
fun.
Delicious.
And then we've done a bunch of other things with some fair trade chocolate companies and things. But yeah, I think we'd love to just make films about chocolate all day long. But
sample the goods too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be dangerous.
Okay. So sorry again. I wanted to explore the sales the sales conversation a bit more, but I completely forgot about this meeting. Guys, if you want to find Mark, go to chocolatevideoproduction.co.uk. And for social media, it's at Chocolate Films, which I'm surprised no one took. That's good, you guys got it.
And also, can I also just say to you two, one of the best things about what you're doing is I never speak to people who run other production companies, and I've been listening to loads and loads of the different episodes, and it's fascinating because, you know, I mean, I've been doing this for a quarter of a century, like you said, but you know, I don't phone up, you know, the bloke who runs another production company down the road and say, let's go and sit down and chat over dinner, because people are like, you're mad, I'm not going to do that, because, you know, you're the competition. So, but it's fascinating, and I find it all amazing. I find it amazing that between Canada and America and the UK, that so many of the different experiences are actually very, very similar. Every now and again there are some things that completely blow my mind, like you've had lots of people who want to work with outdoor clothing companies. It's never occurred to me ever in my life to think I'd like to work with an outdoor clothing company, but maybe I'd love it. I don't know. But no, I think what you're doing is actually something really valuable for this particular niche of the market. It's a great thing. It's fascinating.
Thank you. But you would be surprised. Like a lot of people are willing to talk. I mean, the first season we did of this show, it was just Toronto focused, and almost all of them said yes, with the exception of maybe one or two. So like people are willing to talk.
Yeah.
People want to talk. People are lonely in their own bubbles. You know, that's what it is.
We're all going through the same problems at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the same experiences, but I've probably been doing a bit longer than some, but no, it's good. It's really good what you're doing, and please keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Well,
we appreciate it, and thank you for joining us on the show and sharing your experience.
Fantastic. And I'll be sharing it wide and sharing laps. But next time anybody asks about somebody in Toronto, you'll be our first call.
Well, we appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group band packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.